Who am I? Deconverted man. But who am I? I got a couple messages lately that said they were impressed by my attitude towards human life. They had assumed one thing because of my avatar name or because of past content they might have seen or something I wrote at some point, but they were surprised that I value life. I think that that should be a given. Don't we all value human life? Ah, I don't know. Well, it seems that some people don't value human life. Some people are happy to see life extinguished, depending upon whose life that is. But I'm not. No matter how disdainful that person might be, I don't want to celebrate death. I can recognize that probably the world is better off without the sort of menace that some serial killer might be, but at the same time, I'm not happy that they're gone. I think we have failed in some sort of way that we didn't do something right to fix this person before they became that person that killed. That we failed to recognize these mental issues in them and failed to give them the proper treatments that would have made them able to fit in with the rest of society. It's our fault in some way, a small way, but still. So, who am I? Well, I'm a human, of course, but also I'm a lobster. Okay, that's a joke, but I do occasionally say that because I think it's funny. I have an odd sense of humor. I consider myself weird, but then again, so is my hero, Weird Al Yankovic. Um, I'm hyperbolic. Sometimes I'm jaded. I can be very emotional. I do have anger management issues, although those have gotten way better over time. And um, I'm old. I'm 40 something. And, I have my issues, if you will. But I also am very caring and compassionate, although that doesn't always come off because I want to be analytical and logical and reasonable. And doing that requires some separation of emotion. In my past videos, if you watched my very first videos, if you will, you'll see the logical fallacy count various logical fallacies that people perform. And that used to be like my thing. But over time, that somewhat changed. And I got maybe lazy with doing these live videos like you're watching now. It's just easier than doing a recorded video because then I edit and I, put in stuff and I want to put in little stuff to see and hear little clips of silliness or whatever. So I take time and energy with those recorded videos, whereas a live video, well, I just say things and there you go, it's done. So I react over the top to various theistic arguments. But theists, I think, tend to not know atheists, broadly speaking. What is it to be an atheist? They're told certain things about atheists by other theists, by apologists, and maybe even the people on the pulpit. Last poll that I'm aware of showed that, at least in America, people mistrusted atheists more than anyone else. And way back in the day, the atheist experience started with the goal of promoting positive atheism. But I just don't see that being accomplished. the negative stuff that happens on the atheist experience is more like Jerry Springer than it is about promoting positive atheism. And I suppose you could blame one person for that, or you could blame a lot of people for that. But it doesn't matter who's ultimately at fault. Not telling me. But there's also other people that could have stopped that and said, no, we don't want that. We want this. People call in and say, here's why I believe in God. And there's just insulted, thrown out, whatever, hung up on, etc. They've heard it all 100 times, but this person has never heard a rebuttal to this stuff. So patience and kindness and consideration should be the goal if the goal is to promote positive atheism. But I don't run the show. I run my channel. So all I can do is improve myself and hope that others improve themselves and encourage each other, because all we have is each other. And that is something I do believe and think is true, because, well, if there's a God, it's sitting back and letting all this happen. So it's not getting involved. So you might disagree with me about God. Then that's fine. You might disagree with me about the supernatural or afterlife, spirits, ghosts, demons, devils, angels, extrasensory powers, or aliens who have come and visited us. I don't know. But we can disagree with each other and be civil about it. We can come to some negotiation, some compromise. Otherwise, well, we're doomed. If you and I cannot come to some sort of negotiated settlement where neither player in that is happy with what they've got, but they're not sad either. They got as most as they could. That's what a negotiation is, to get the most out of it as you can, while sacrificing the least amount, but you still have to sacrifice something. And so coming to the table of ideas, as it were, we have to be willing to give up some ideas in order to get the ideas that we want on the table and to keep them there. Unfortunately, politics and religion are both places where that seems almost impossible to do. Perhaps religion more difficult than politics, believe it or not. But why? Well, in many religions, God is the arbiter of what is right and wrong. And there's a long list of things that God wants you to do. Now, I'm familiar with the Judeo-Christian version of God, so I can't really speak on the other gods out there, like Hinduism or, what else is there? Zoroastrianism, Buddhism is kind of not really a god. Shintoism, yeah. There's things that are out there that aren't really about God per se, but are still religions. But there's many gods out there and many religions out there, and many of them we don't hear that much about. So you're familiar with the one that you're familiar with. You believe the one that you're part of is the one that's true. And for many Americans, that happens to be Christianity. So I would rather talk against Islam, though, in that Islam is dangerous as a religion because it wants to kill non-Islams and or tax the non-Islam people. That's not good. I don't want to live under that system, and I don't think anybody else does either, because you're being kind of punished for not being part of their system. And many Muslims, last poll I knew, wanted Sharia law, and Sharia law is no good for anybody, even the Muslims themselves. Although some might benefit from it, far more will suffer, especially women. Oddly enough, women are covered not for women, but because men are too horny I don't know. Anyways, regardless, I like to point out logical fallacies. And for whatever reason, for, for whatever reason, religion and apologetics is a ripe source of illogical fallacies. So I pick at them. And I'm an atheist, so, it's like, you know. But I only do so to try to say, hey, look, your argument sucks. Go fix your argument. And then when they don't do it, I'm like, what's going on? Why aren't you fixing your argument? I don't understand that. Of course, I care about my fellow humans. So you might wonder, what are your politics, deconverted man? Tell me, so you can be on a side. I'm apolitical. I don't have one. I don't care. Last time I took that political compass test thing, I don't know how, well that is set up. A lot of questions I didn't understand, and I still not sure about, and I had to ask ChatGPT and be like, okay, I think I understand that question, but I'm not sure. But I went somewhere in the middle. I started like in the middle, then I went down, then I went to the left a little bit, and I've been here, I've been there, I've been a little bit everywhere. So I guess it just depends on my mood and how I answer the question. And some of these questions I don't like they're set up to be certain ways, which I guess is part of the thing because it wants to put you somewhere on this political compass, but I don't fit very well. I'm in the middle somewhat. Not maybe in the middle, but somewhere in the middle. Because I have nuanced views. I don't see in this black and white, or I try not to. Maybe I do, and I'm not aware of it. Abortion. Oh, wow. Ooh. Okay, well, that's a big one for many people. Why? It's a moral issue for many. I don't know. I have gone one way and the other way in my head of this particular issue. It is the case where sometimes somebody will find themselves in a situation where that child is not wanted. As cruel as that might seem on the surface, if we knew the particulars of the situation, that should say something. If we really value life, we have to value the life of the woman that is there now and not the potential life or the actual life that's going to be. If she was harmed, raped, and now has a child, I don't think she should have to carry that child to term. Doing so might incur more mental anguish for her and certainly put her through physical things that she never wanted to be a part of, at least not with that person. So I don't think it's fair to her. You can say, well, she can give up the baby to adoption centers. Have you seen the adoption centers? Have you seen the adoption system? Do you know how broken that is? Last I knew, it was pretty broken. And some are better than others, but it's not as good as it could be. So if you're against abortion, then you should be for fixing the system of adoption centers, but I rarely hear that rhetoric. I also don't hear rhetoric that would enhance ways to avoid abortion, i.e., sex education. There are polls that show the more kids know about sex, the less teen pregnancy occurs. So, why do people do abstinence only? Because they have a belief that that's the right way to do it, but it yields the wrong result. So, they need to go with the data, not their belief. But also, I do think that there is a missing element. Sure, teach kids about contraceptives, about sex, about all that stuff, but also How about teaching them what to do if they want a kid? What are they supposed to do then? That education is left up to the parents. Why do we do that? I mean, the parents often want to be able to raise their kids their way, but what does that even mean? Do you know how to parent? Does anybody? We have some ideas, but we're just guessing, right? Certain things are in the domain of the parent, but what that is or what that means, I'm not sure. I think that the education system should be to enable people to be adults, not to just teach them stuff that they're probably never going to use in life. I don't remember like anything that I learned in school, and I don't know that I learned much of anything in school. Mathematics, goodness gracious. When's the last time I used that? History, I've learned more from the history guy than I remember learning at school. Science, I kind of remember. Computer programming, but that was on an Apple IIe computer. Yeah, useful stuff, right? Hey, I learned how to type real fast. So that's a thing. Anyways, point is, education, it's broken, needs to be fixed. We all know that. But I'm not here to fix that. I can't fix that. I'm not an advocate. I'm not a activist. I'm that's not my thing. I can complain about it, but that's not going to do any good. Real change takes real time and real effort and a whole lot of money. And that's just not something I'm into. So I'm like, well, yeah, I see that there's a problem, but what am I supposed to do about it? But I think if you're against abortion, you should be for other things. You should be for adoption centers being better. You should be for sex education. You should be for science improvements that would give humans the ability to negate reproduction more easily. Not just pills for women, but pills for men, and maybe some sort of, I don't know, electronic device that we could install that we would have control over and nobody else could mess with, where we could literally just think certain thoughts and turn it on and off so that our reproductive system was on or off. That way we could have sex without consequence, which for some people is immoral. But sex is natural. As long as it's consent in both parties, I don't see the problem with having sex. Yes, there's a danger in making each other sick with STDs, but that's where the education part comes in. So if we develop science more, then abortion should be less. If we have ways to control our reproductive stuff, if we have artificial wombs, we have different ways that we can handle the fetus, then abortion should go down. But sometimes it will still be needed to save the life of the woman or to prevent her from having a kid that, it's just going to be traumatic for her because she was raped or whatever other circumstances might apply. All right. So nobody really is happy with that because I'm not saying it's legal or illegal. I'm saying it depends. That nuanced concept doesn't fit well with left or right. It goes in the center. What other politics stuff? Deconvert, man, come on, tell me more. I don't know. What else do you want? I don't know. Trade with foreign nations? I don't know what the hell to do with that. Good luck. I don't know. Death penalty? Probably not, because sometimes we're wrong. But then, and I don't celebrate death, so I don't see the point in killing somebody. You're not bringing anybody back. And are you really making people feel good? Like, that's bad. Like, okay, I get it. Like, you'd be mad at somebody. Maybe you'd want to beat them up or whatever, right? Okay, well, why don't we allow that? Like, put them in a boxing ring. But it would have to then be a fair fight. And the one person might be stronger than the other. And so, and then is that good? I mean, I don't know. I don't have a solution for it. I don't think it's a good idea, but I don't know what a better idea is. But I do think the prison system needs to be reformed as well. And again, what am I supposed to do about it? All right, so I don't agree with you on anything politically. Woohoo, probably, maybe. I have nuanced ideas about all the political things you could probably bring up. All right. I don't know much else politics I could talk to you about. So, there's that topic. Is that political or social? Do I have to talk about that one? I don't want to talk about it. Okay, I guess I have to talk about it. LGBT, etc. I don't know why they keep adding letters. At this point, it's the alphabet. Whatever. Okay, so the gays, they fought and won their freedom and rights back in the day. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend the movie called Milk. Wow, what a interesting person that man was. And it has a kind of an interesting connection to me because he died in 1978 and I was born in 1978. So obviously I'm the reincarnation of Milk. No, I'm not as interesting as he was. Anyways, seriously though, very interesting movie. Very interesting story because he is a real person. And those rights were deserved and needed. Homosexuality, whether you like it or not, is natural. It happens in the animal kingdom, and we are animals. Some people view it as immoral because they have a certain view of what the Bible says, but their view of what the Bible says is based on an English translation that is actually incorrect, and it was made that way deliberately. And all you have to do is learn your history of your own Bible and religion to find that out. But many Christians are just simply too lazy to do so. So I'm here to tell you, go educate yourself and find out. Because I could be wrong, but you need to look into it to find out. If you want some resources, I can certainly provide them for you. I have no problem doing that. But sometimes it's better for you to find out on your own. I mean, if I give you the resources, you might be like, oh, those are, I don't know, evil resources or something. I don't know. Anyways, but if you want them, we'll give them to you. Let me know in the comments. The gays. Yeah, the gays are from back in the day, okay? That was in the 80s. It was the gays. Now it's homosexual, But at any rate, these issues of rights and treatment of people that are different has always been something that humans have struggled with throughout time. But religion does tend to make it harder. Now, I have no doubt that without religion, we would still have prejudice and racism and bigotry, etc. We are social creatures, but we're also group oriented. Us versus them, red versus blue, skin versus not skin. I don't know, whatever. It's so easy for us to become tribal. Democrat versus Republican, orange man versus anyone else. I don't know, And it's easy because they're on that team. So they're bad and evil and vile and despicable and disgusting. And we're on this team and we're all perfect on this side. Hallelujah. And I'm like, yeah, it's easy to point out the flaws on their side, but what about you? What about your flaws? The Bible actually talks about that. It's like, don't point out their little thing in their eye. Was it a splinter? Because you got a log hanging out your eye. But Christians sometimes forget that that's in there because there's so much other stuff in there. But what about us pesky atheists? We don't have a Bible, so where do our morals come from? We'll get to that because I have to talk about what atheism is, but I'm not done talking about myself yet. Bleh. Almost done. I am narcissist, so please bear with me. What else can I tell you about me? I don't know, really. I'm me. I don't know. It's hard to know what to tell you exactly. Music. Oh, okay. Weird Al Yankovic, followed by a whole bunch of random anime and movie music. I have a playlist of my favorite songs, and I have a few other playlists of music that I like. Pure moods, soundtracks, things, compilations. There's no one thing of music that I don't really care for like super heavy metal, like when they're I can't. What are they saying? I don't understand it, and it's just loud and abrasive. I don't really care for it. But yeah, I have 3 albums of Deconverted Band, so you can check that out, I guess. Captive Desk, Doctor Appointment. May science prevail in your speedy recovery, Captive Desk. I am warning all the stuff that's in you that I will send lobsters out, and so it better be nice to you and not hurt you, because I'll come after it with my lobsters and stuff. I want Captive Desk to be well. All right. Whew, that might be a little bit emotional to think about. All right. Talking about me, right. Okay, I'm done talking about me, I guess, for now. I don't know. Somebody was like, what about this? What about that? I'm like, all right, fine. Put in the comments and I'll tell you more. I was trying to write my life story, but I just kind of like went on it, and I don't know. One of these days I'll get back to it, maybe. All right. So enough about me. I'm apolitical, I'm a skeptic, I'm an atheist, I'm a logician, amateur-wise. What does all that mean? Okay, so what is it to be an atheist? Here we go. Now, many of you know this if you're my viewers, but this is aimed at people who don't know, maybe. Well, atheism is a word. Oh, and it has a definition. And like all words, definitions change over time. The classical philosophical definition of atheist was there's no God. But over time, that changed, and people said, no. It's I don't believe in God. So now it has 2 definitions. Yay. And the zeitgeist is a fun word. It means like the cultural consensus, sort of. It's weird. Anyways, has decided that, no, we want the second definition. When asked the question, do you believe in God? If the answer is no, you're an atheist. And that's it. But does God exist? Well, I don't know. Well, then aren't you agnostic? Nope. Well, maybe. Agnostic has its own definition. And thanks to the zeitgeist, it too has sort of begun to acquire a second definition because things aren't complicated enough. All right, so what's agnostic? Okay, agnostic defined means you don't know whether or not God is possible to prove or disprove. In fact, you might believe that it is impossible to prove or disprove God. But agnostic has started to become to mean I don't know if there is or isn't a God, which is different from the original definition. And then there's agnostic atheist and agnostic theist and Gnostic theist and Gnostic atheist. Gnostic? What the hell is Gnostic? It means you know stuff. Gnostic means knowledge. So a Gnostic theist would say there is a God, absolutely for sure. They wouldn't just say that they believe in God. They say there is a God. Whereas a Gnostic atheist would say there is no God. This is also called weak and strong atheist and or theist because, again, we need more complicated stuff because language isn't complicated enough. Could you be an agnostic? I don't know and I don't care. Also, there's ichtheist. Let's not forget ichtheist. What's ichtheist? It means I don't know what the bleep God is. The word God is incoherent, has no meaning, and thus anyone that uses God is saying something that is gibberish. Except for, of course, the ichtheist, who's allowed to say that God is incoherent because they have to say God in order to say that God is incoherent. It's a really weird system. I'm kind of an agnostic ichtheist because I love to mess around with words and ideas like that. What does it mean to be agnostic ichtheist? It means that I agree that the word God is incoherent, but I don't think that it's so incoherent that nobody can use it. All right. So, hello. Say hello. Oh, atheist, right. So it's just A is without, and theos is God, and so it's just without God, and that's it. That's all it means. So is it a worldview? Nope, not a worldview. Part of a worldview, but not in and of itself a worldview. Because there's not a there. The word theist also couldn't be a worldview because it doesn't tell you which version of theist you are. So just being a theist doesn't give you a worldview per se. It's the brand of theism that you have that does. But there's no brand of atheism. They're not mirrors of each other. It's kind of odd in that way. It's like, well, what do you collect? Not stamps. Well, wait, that's not an answer. Sure it is. I don't collect stamps. I collect everything else, but not those. I'm telling you what I don't do, not what I do. Do. Poop. Okay. All right. So atheism is just not believing in God. And what God is, well, I don't know. That's up to the person that tells me there's a God. Different ideas about God exist, and I don't know what you mean by it. See you later. Gotta say, see you later. So I guess they're leaving. Later. I guess. All right. He's like, okay, later. I don't know. All right, whatever. Pardon me. Glad this is live and I can't edit anything out. It's great. Okay, so not a worldview, just not believing in God. So, technically speaking, as an atheist, you could believe in an afterlife. You could believe in angels and devils and demons, and you could believe in the paranormal and extrasensory powers and aliens that have visited Earth that have kidnapped us and replaced our brains and made us into lizard people that came from the center of the Earth, but you can't believe in God. As long as you don't believe in God, you can believe in whatever the bleep else you want. And technically, you're an atheist. Now, it's true. Most atheists, I dare say, don't believe in all that other stuff. But you don't know until you ask. It's kind of frustrating. Even if you say you're a Christian, that doesn't necessarily tell me what version of Christian you are. Are you a Baptist? Or are you a Lutheran? Or a Quaker? Oh yeah, Quakers are still a thing. What's a Quaker? They're weird. I don't know. You're Pentecostal. You're a King James onlyist. You're a fill in the blank. So I don't necessarily know what you mean when you say Christian. And so too, you might not know what I mean when I say atheist per se, because it only told you I didn't believe in God, but it didn't tell you what I do believe in. Do you believe in the paranormal? Nope. Do you believe in? No, I don't. And to make that easy, I also have the label skeptic. Most people, I dare say, see the word skeptic and go, oh, you don't believe in anything. No, 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 no. That's the other version of skeptic. That's the one I reject. Wait a minute. You're making words complicated again, aren't you? Yes, I am. In my video, not suck. I describe what I view skeptic as, which, to recap, if you haven't watched that video, is basically imagine a shelf in your brain. Not in your brain, but like, in the room that you imagine that your brain is a room. And then imagine you have a shelf in there. And on that shelf, you put ideas that you aren't sure about. Maybe they're true, maybe not. I don't know. So it's on the skeptical shelf. And it stays there until I have a reason to take it down and re-examine it. And on that shelf is God and paranormal and supernatural and stuff like that. Because I don't have a sound argument for these things. I have nothing but bad arguments for these things that I've heard and seen and read, etc. Why that is? I don't know. Maybe because God is just an idea in the mind. And it sure seems like it is. I could be wrong. So it's on that shelf until somebody gives me more data on it. Then I can take it down and go, maybe this is true. Or maybe this is false. So to me, to be skeptical is simply to hold something in limbo, if you will, or in question. It's not necessarily true, but it's not necessarily false either. And I'm not saying which one it is because I don't know. And so there it stays on that pretend skeptic shelf. Maybe there's a better word for this than skeptic. I don't know. But that's the word I like. And if you want to blame somebody, blame my brother. He called me a skeptic like the first time I was skeptical and grumpy and stuff. So it's his fault. Also, I'm glad that he gave me that title or label because I like it and I've used it ever since. So I appreciate it. All right. So, no, atheists don't believe that the universe came from nothing. Let's get that off the way. In fact, atheists don't believe whatever about the universe. We don't know, broadly speaking. We'll accept science, whatever science says on it. We don't know. Ask a cosmologist. Why should I know the answer to that question? What about life? How does that work? Again, ask a scientist. I don't know. I'm not a biologist, but it seems like biological evolution is the thing that happened for real. And if you want to deny that, then okay, that's a big problem. And I don't know why you're doing that, but I'd advise you to not do it because it just makes you look stupid. What about abiogenesis? Oh man, that's again science. Go ask scientists. I don't know. But you really say that chemicals formed life? Yeah. That seems to be the case. Well, how does that work? Good question. Don't know. Go find out. Well, they have never made life in the lab. Okay, cool. And what's your point? Well, if they haven't done it, then it must be really hard to do. I don't know. But so what? And? Well, then that means God. Huh? So you're saying that when we do make life in the lab, that there's no longer a God? No. Because you know, and I know that you know, that the moment that they make life in the lab, you're going to be like, aha, it took intelligence to make life. Because you have a belief that God is intelligent and made life. And maybe it did. But it did it in a way that we can't verify that it did. And what we know is, well, based on observations and data gathering. What we believe is a different story. The atheist tends to use logic, reason, critical thinking, and science to determine what is or isn't. The epistemology of the skeptic or atheist versus the apologist and or theist is very different. If you listen to apologists, you will hear this. I just responded to this doctor who's a doctor of philosophy. I don't know if we should give out doctorates for that, but whatever we do, I don't know. Anyways, and he was like, this is evidence and this is evidence. And I'm like, no, it's not. And he said that I said that empirical evidence was the only evidence that there was, which I didn't say. I just rejected his other things as being evidence. I think that empirical evidence is evidence, but evidence by itself, what is that? Hard to pin down because it's one of those darn words that has multiple meanings. But the sort of other things that he was calling evidence are not very good. They're questionable, highly dubious. And so I have every reason to doubt those things. When you examine the world around you, how do you do that? How do you determine what is or isn't true? This is epistemology. And theists have to rely on philosophical ideas to get to the goal that they want to, whereas a non-theist doesn't. All I have to use is data that I can actually gather from the real world. Philosophy doesn't have a science to it. There aren't peer-reviewed philosophical papers that come to a consensuary opinion. There is no determining who's right, Kant or Aristotle, within philosophy itself. There's just different ideas of different philosophers, and they all have different opinions. So philosophy isn't really a system to determine what is or isn't true. If you want a system like that, you're looking at logic, either informal or formal logic, or both. And if you want a different system, then you've got science. But what else is there? I don't know. I'm waiting for somebody to tell me another system that exists that I can use and how that system works. But philosophy isn't that. What about personal testimony? What about it? People are wrong. People make up stuff. People lie. People think that they've seen things or experienced things, and they really haven't. Or they have, but it's just a dream or a vision or an illusion or whatever. So how do I know? Unless I also saw it, I don't know. But it's not enough that I saw it. A lot of people need to see it. Well, weren't there a bunch of people in Mexico that all saw the sun do weird things? Supposedly, but it was not recorded. They saw it, and that was recorded, but the phenomenon wasn't recorded. It's odd that recordings, even though everybody has these now, are like not happening of these supernatural events. So no documentation is available, or the documentation you have is highly dubious in nature. Oh, but there's books about miracles, sure. And none of those miracles can be confirmed or tested. And that's a problem. So, being a skeptic means I question those things. I investigate those things. I scrutinize those things, and I demand empirical evidence or a repeatable test or a sound argument for those things. And I apply that standard to everything. Empirical evidence, repeatable test, a valid and sound argument. Give me one of those three things. And if you cannot or will not, I don't believe you. That's it. Whatever it is. If you make a claim, I'm going to tell you to give me a valid and sound argument more than likely. And if you will not or cannot or do not, then I just don't believe you, whatever it is. And if you tell me to go Google it, we're done because it's your burden to prove, not mine. Okay. So, what is an atheist, though? Do you have morals? Where do you get that from? Empathy. My parents, other people, That's where I get my morals from, broadly speaking. But even if I didn't know the answer to that question, that doesn't mean that you're right or that your God is real or that your morals are superior to mine. Not knowing the answer to anything doesn't mean anything. It just means you don't know. It has nothing to do with your burden of proof. Where morals come from is, well, appears to be biological evolution. It evolved with us because we became creatures that utilized morals to cooperate with each other, to foster a community that could survive and hunt together so that we could conquer other humans and take their stuff and eat them and whatever we did with them. We beat the Neanderthals. Yay! Anyways. But it all is so subjective. It might be. And? Well, then it doesn't really matter if it's right or wrong because it's just your opinion. And it still matters, even if it is your opinion. There's lots of things that apologists say that are just silly. That's one of them. Anyway. So, what else can you tell me about atheism? I can tell you what it isn't. What it is, it's just this one answer to a question. It's not this, that, and the other. It's not saying that there's no God necessarily. It depends what you mean by God. It's not saying that the universe came from nothing, because I have a video where I, polled a number of atheists, and no, we don't think that. It's not because I want to sin or because I don't believe in sin. It's not, that I hate God or, it's not any of these things that you've been told. Every atheist is different. We're kind of like cats. You can't get the cats to get into the thing. It is really hard to herd cats. If you trained them, maybe you could do it. But none of us want to do it. Because we're all different. We have different political views. We have different sociological views. We have different views on ethics. We have different views of fill in the blank. We probably have a different view on it. Because we're just, one term is free thinkers. We're free to think about all sorts of stuff and then ask ourselves, should I even think about that? And it's a weird thing. But that's human. Even Christians don't really agree with other Christians. Maybe you'll find two Christians that agree on everything, but I'd dare say that's probably very rare, or maybe they're in a cult. Anyways, so I don't know if I've said everything that atheism is or isn't, or I've covered everything that I do or don't believe in. I'll tell you one thing I do believe in, even though I am a skeptic. You. Yeah, you. You right there. You in the chat and you later in the comment section. I believe in you. I don't know you, but I believe that you have in you the ability to change and grow and be even better than you are today. And I believe that you just have to want it bad enough and then act on that desire. I believe that if you learn informal logic, you will have the tool set to be able to make good arguments. And I believe that as long as we exist, there's hope in this world. I could be wrong on those beliefs. All right. Thanks for listening. I think I covered everything except for women, which is a giant question mark that I can't resolve. So if anyone understands them, please let me know. Until next time, be skeptical. Love you too. I am Davenport. I just looked over there. Love you, DM. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. I didn't look at chat. Skeptical that I'm awake. A cup of coffee should help you figure it out. Yeah, that's true. All right. Let me know if I missed anything. If you're also an atheist, agnostic, skeptic, whatever your label might be, or if you're a theist and this is your first time here and you're like, hey, I subscribed to you because I was shocked that you care about humans, leave your comments below and I will respond to them. And or if you want to talk to me live, I will be glad to interview you or have a talk. I don't do debates. If you want a debate, it's going to be a lot of rules that you have to agree to, and yeah, nobody wants that. Yeah. Any rate, so email me, deconvertedman, the number 1 at gmail.com, and I hit my elbow on the table. Ow. Thanks for watching. Once again, I said that already, but I'm going to say it again. Man, don't you hate when people repeat themselves? Don't you hate when people repeat themselves? Don't you hate when people... Oh, shit. Until next time, be skeptical. And after that, stay skeptical. And there we go. Yeah. Lobsters. Lobsters exist. That's something we can all agree on.